At sunrise, a survey flag snapped in the wind, and my phone buzzed with a photo that made my stomach drop. 50 houses stood where my cattle grazed, roofs shining like a dare, driveways carved through my pasture. The message read, "Welcome to Meadow Ridge HOA." I didn't own a camera drone, but someone had just used one to trespass on my ranch and announce a neighborhood. I never approved. I laughed once, sharp and stunned, because the alternative was screaming. By sunset, the laughter would stop. I bought this ranch from my father, and he bought it from his, with boundaries traced by creeks, oaks, and deeds older than the county courthouse. I lived quiet here, mending fences, counting calves, letting the land speak. Then trucks arrived. At first, I thought the county had made a mistake. I called the planning office. Permits existed, they said, approved months ago. Approved by whom? A developer, they answered, representing the HOA. I drove to the site and met smiles that felt rehearsed. The HOA president shook my hand and thanked me for being neighborly. She explained easements I'd never granted, roads I'd never dedicated, and a vision for shared access. When I showed her my deed, she waved it away. Our attorneys handled everything, she said, laughing with a confidence that drew a small crowd. People recorded. Someone muttered that ranchers always bluff. I asked for a stop work order. They laughed louder. I didn't threaten. I documented. I photographed survey pins pulled and replaced, fences cut, gates removed. I requested records. I hired a surveyor who walked every line with me, flag by flag, inch by inch, until the truth lay bright as paint. The road they used, the only road, crossed my land from end to end. No easement, no dedication, just assumption and momentum. That night, I reread the deed and the law until dawn. By noon, I welded hinges. By evening, I swung iron across gravel and closed the gates. Engines idled. Phones rang. The laughter vanished, replaced by disbelief echoing off new siding. The next morning, deputies arrived, calm and curious, measuring tapes in hand. Neighbors gathered, confused, some angry, some embarrassed. I offered water, copies, patience. The surveyor explained lines. The deputies nodded. Calls went up the chain. A judge was mentioned, then postponed. Developers argued logistics. I spoke softly about rights. Dust settled. Cows watched. The gate stood firm. Nothing moved without permission. Silence did more than shouting ever could. It proved ownership is quiet, stubborn, and patient. And truth travels slower than rumor, but arrives heavier. By dusk, the crowd thinned. Arguments faded, and every keycard felt useless beyond my fence. At last, reality set in slowly. By the third day, the HOA tried charm instead of laughter. A letter arrived by courier, thick with legal language and thin on facts, claiming implied access and community necessity. I read it twice, then set it beside the survey maps spread across my kitchen table. Outside, engines idled again. Residents lining up at the locked gate like commuters at a closed bridge. Some waved. Others filmed. One man shouted that his kids were late for school. I nodded, sympathetic, unmoved. The developer requested a meeting at the site, promising solutions. I agreed on one condition. The county surveyor would attend. When we met, the HOA president smiled tightly and spoke about cooperation, emergency access, and shared values. The developer talked timelines and investments. I asked one question. Where is the easement? Silence stretched. Papers shuffled. Someone suggested historical use. I pointed to fences older than their permits. They accused me of extortion, of holding families hostage. The word stung, but it was theater. I reminded them they had built first and asked later. The county surveyor cleared his throat and read aloud from records. Each sentence a nail. No recorded easement. No dedication. No variance. Just permits approved on a map that didn't match reality. Anger replaced smiles. Threats followed. Lawsuits were promised. News vans appeared. A headline flashed online, painting me as a villain blocking hardworking families. I refused interviews. Instead, I filed injunctions and requested a stop-use order on the road. That afternoon, a judge signed temporary relief. The gate stayed shut, legally now. Residents began to understand they'd been sold a shortcut. Some apologized. Others blamed me anyway. One woman cried, saying her mortgage would ruin her. I listened, offered numbers for the developer's insurer, and explained that fraud travels downhill. Accountability rarely does. She left quietly. Behind the scenes, the developer scrambled. Engineers proposed a new access road that bypassed my land, but it cut through wetlands and private parcels. Costs ballooned. Timelines slipped. Investors panicked. The HOA board fractured, members resigning in angry emails that leaked online. Laughter never returned. On the fifth night, someone tried to cut the lock. Cameras caught it. Deputies cited trespass. The message spread fast. The gate wasn't a stunt. It was a line, and lines once proven don't bend for convenience. They wait, pressure builds, truth holds. Emails poured in overnight, some furious, some frightened, some begging for answers I couldn't give. I slept little, steady in resolve, knowing the law favored patience. Every message confirmed the same truth. Shortcuts collapse when confronted, and ownership survives noise, time, and pressure without compromise or apology from anyone involved. By the end of the week, mediation was requested. For the first time, they stopped laughing and started listening. Mediation took place in a windowless county room that smelled like burnt coffee and paper dust. On one side sat the developer's attorneys, suits creased from long nights, voices measured and tired. On the other sat the HOA board, smaller now, eyes darting between documents and exits. I sat alone, survey maps stacked neatly, deed copies tabbed, my hands steady. No cameras, no laughter. Just facts waiting their turn. They opened with offers, compensation, maintenance agreements, shared access under strict conditions. Each proposal assumed one thing, that I would eventually give in. I didn't interrupt. I let them talk until silence returned, then slid the survey across the table. The county seal glinted under fluorescent light. I explained that access was not negotiable, but damages were: trespass, fence removal, crop loss, survey cost, legal fees. My list was short and precise. The mediator nodded. The attorneys whispered. The HOA president looked betrayed, as if someone had changed the rules mid-game. She said families were suffering. I agreed. Then I asked who sold them the lie. The room shifted. Blame finally found its address. Outside, construction halted. Half-finished homes sat like paused thoughts. For sale signs appeared without numbers. Lenders called. Subcontractors filed liens. The developer's confidence cracked. They proposed buying a strip of land for a new road at a premium. I refused. They proposed condemnation. The county declined, citing alternatives and improper permitting. Pressure squeezed from all sides. Residents organized meetings demanding answers. Some hired their own lawyers. A class action rumor circulated. The HOA dissolved its board in a chaotic vote that ended with shouting and tears. The developer's name vanished from the project website overnight. Silence replaced slogans. Then came the audit. County officials reviewed permit approvals and discovered altered maps, misaligned coordinates, and signatures that didn't match records. An internal investigation began. Approvals were suspended countywide for the developer. Insurance carriers were notified. Risk managers panicked. The story turned. A reporter finally reached me at the gate. I spoke once, calmly, on record. Property lines matter, I said. So does honesty. That quote ran everywhere. The villain narrative evaporated. Sympathy followed, cautious and incomplete, but enough. Weeks passed. The gate stayed closed. Grass reclaimed tire ruts. Calves returned to pasture. Mediation reconvened with new faces and a different tone. They asked what it would take to end the dispute. I answered plainly: restitution, removal of the road, restoration of the land, and a public correction. No access, ever. They asked for time. I granted deadlines, not favors. When you own something, you learn the difference. Ownership doesn't rush. It waits for the other side to catch up to reality. By month's end, papers were drafted. By week's end, checks cleared. By day's end, machines arrived, not to build, but to undo. The first machine rolled in before dawn, its lights cutting across the pasture like an apology arriving late. Crews worked quietly, dismantling what had been rushed together. Asphalt peeled up in long black ribbons. Curbs crumbled. The road that never should have existed disappeared piece by piece, hauled away under supervision. I stood by the gate with coffee cooling in my hand, watching accountability finally do physical labor. Restoration took weeks. Topsoil was replaced, compacted earth loosened, native grass reseeded. Fences went back where they belonged, stronger than before. The developer paid for every inch, every hour, every mistake, as outlined in the settlement that followed mediation. A public notice ran in the local paper, correcting the record and acknowledging errors. It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough to the truth to matter. The HOA dissolved completely. Residents were released from contracts tied to the Phantom Access Road. Some stayed, negotiating private driveways and new routes. Others sold at losses the developer absorbed. Lawsuits followed, quiet and efficient, ending careers that had relied on shortcuts and assumptions. The county tightened its review process. Maps were double-checked. Names were remembered. Life on the ranch returned to its rhythm. Gates opened for cattle, not commuters. The creek ran clear again. At night, the stars felt closer without the glow of unfinished homes. Neighbors waved from a distance, respectful now. Understanding where the line stood, I waved back. People still ask if I regret locking the gates. I tell them no. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're clarity. If I had yielded, the lesson would have been that momentum beats truth. Instead, the lesson spread quietly. Deeds matter. Laughter doesn't grant rights. And confidence without proof is just noise. The gate remains, not out of spite, but as a reminder. It opens when it should, and stays closed when it must. I don't patrol it anymore. I don't have to. Ownership settled the argument, and time sealed it. Months later, a letter arrived from a family who'd almost moved in. They thanked me for standing firm, said it saved them from a worse mess down the road. I pinned it to the corkboard by the door, next to the survey map that started it all. Proof beside gratitude, facts beside feeling. On clear mornings, I ride the fence line, checking posts, listening to the land. Nothing dramatic happens now, and that's the point. The story ended where it began, with lines respected and silence earned. If there's a moral, it's simple. Ask first, build second, and never assume someone else's land is yours just because it's convenient. Gates close. Truth doesn't move. If you enjoyed watching me shut down the HOA and lock the gates, make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment telling me what you would do if this happened on your land. Don't miss the next crazy HOA showdown. Hit the bell icon now.